Okay, so I seem to remember. I think it was the interview with Sean Oliver where you mentioned the way that the Brawl for All came about, and you're credited with the idea. Can you tell me like how that happened?
Yeah, bro, it's a funny story, and it has a lot to do with why I'm not at the top of JBL's Christmas card list, bro. Uh, I'll never forget it, bro. We were there one day. It was myself, it was JBL, and it was Kevin Kelly. And JBL and Kevin Kelly were pretty tight. I'll be honest with you, Sean. I wasn't a big fan of JBL because I always thought the guy was a bully. I always thought he was, and I knew he didn't like me. I think it was like a New York thing. So I'll never forget, bro. We're at a TV and we're there one day and we're just, shooting the crap. And JBL makes the comment that if the WWE was like one big bar fight, he would whoop everybody's ass in the back. So in other words, everyone on the roster, he would whoop in a bar fight. Those words came directly out of his mouth. Now, you got to understand, bro, I'm not crazy about the guy to begin with. And I knew there was some pretty freaking tough guys in the locker room, right? So I kind of let those words sink into my head and thought about them for a few days. And then, the next creative meeting, I pitched the Brawl for All to Vince McMahon.
So, was there any concern? Well, first off, like, what was the reception from Vince like? What did he think about it?
Bro, he loved it. Vince loves that stuff, bro. I mean, bro, two guys fighting as a shoot, a real competitive nature. Bragging rights. I mean, Vince, I mean, that tapped into his masculinity. I mean, something fierce. I didn't have to sell him on it. I didn't have to talk him into it. It was just really a matter of, okay, how do we do this? And basically what it came down to, Sean, was dollars and cents. You pay the guys extra money. You give them a bonus to be in the Brawl for All. And the further and further they went along, the more money they got paid. So it was, it was bonus money for the guys. And that's how we enticed them to, put their name on the dotted line.
Is there any truth that originally Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn were not going to be allowed in it?
Yeah, yeah, bro. There was talk of that. Sean, I really can't remember the specifics, but we definitely did discuss those two being in it.
So was there any rhyme or reason to who was in this? Because a lot of the guys hadn't really been used much. Some of them were, but a lot of them were obviously not, like, you weren't throwing The Undertaker or Stone Cold Steve Austin in there for obvious reasons. Was there any rhyme or reason to picking who did it, or did they volunteer to do it?
No, listen, some guys wanted to do it, and some guys needed the money. I mean, quite honestly, Sean, I mean, like I said, they were bonus. It was a nice little paycheck on the side. So, I'd say it was two categories. Some guys wanted to do it. Like, here's a typical example, a Mark Merrow. Mark Merrow was like the kind of guy in the locker room. Like, he wasn't the toughest guy in the locker room. Bro, Merrow used to, people put him through such a hard time because of Sable, because she was so over and Merrow took the brunt of it. In the meantime, Merrow was a legitimate Gold Gloves champion. Yeah. So now was Merrow's opportunity. I'm going to shut these, MFers up. So like Mark Merrow, his was one of the first names in the ring. A lot of guys were tough guys that would just, wanted to see how tough the other guys were. And some guys, guys like Draws, I remember, were in it. Savio Vega.
Draws
guys
did
like
well
that
too.
needed, wanted the paycheck.
Was there any concern that it might, like, I mean, you have guys like Road Warrior Hawk who are known as badasses in the business. Was there any concern that maybe those fights would expose these guys?
Sean, you got to say that again because I got disconnected, bro.
Oh, it's okay. There were guys, obviously, like Road Warrior Hawk, who were known, or at least had a reputation among wrestling fans as true badasses and things like that. Was there any concern that those fights might expose those people as maybe not being badasses?
Yeah, but Sean, look at exactly what you're saying. You're 100% correct. With the guys that had the reputation of being badasses, can you imagine if they didn't sign up for it?
Yeah, that's true. That's
So,
true.
bro,
And
keep in mind, you got a locker room of all the freaking talent. Now, literally, this is a shoot. It's time to put up or shut up. If you're as bad as you want people to think you are, it's time to put up or shut up. So, like, I think in Hawk's case, he really didn't have a choice.
yeah. And was there any talk? Were any of the matches set up that way on purpose? Because I know that they had the Draws Hawk match, and I know that they had kind of a thing going for a while. Were any of them used to advance storylines? I mean, obviously you integrated them later, but
zero, bro. 100% shoot. Absolutely not. These weren't storylines. These guys were going to go out. We had judges keeping score. 100, not one of them, bro, was written for a storyline. Not one.
now, obviously there were always the rumors that WWE wanted Dr. Death to win. Was there any talk of that
It
backstage?
was the complete opposite, bro.
Really?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Bro, Sean, I'm probably going to get in trouble telling you some of these stories, but you know I like you, bro.
Yeah.
Bro, JR carried on in the back for weeks and weeks and weeks about how Dr. Death was going to destroy everybody. The boys got so sick of hearing him, bro, that quite frankly, they were rooting against Dr. Death. I mean, it got to the point that, okay, everybody in the locker room wanted to see Dr. Death be taken down. And it had nothing to do with Steve Williams, bro. Sweetheart of a guy. Everybody loves Steve Williams. But, bro, the way JR put over Dr. Death, like somebody wanted to see him, get his lights knocked out. And like I said, I just want to make it clear, nothing against Steve Williams. Everybody loved him, but JR was so over the top in what Dr. Death was going to do to people.
Obviously, the fighting has come a long way since then, even at the UFC levels. And I went back and I watched all these fights. Some of them were looking pretty Kimbo Dada 5000-ish. Yeah. We had guys swinging from there. I mean, I've taught a lot of girls who hit better than some of these guys now. Was there anyone that you saw and you were like, oh, that's terrible, I didn't expect that? Or was it like all of them?
Yeah, it was really all of them, because let's face it, Sean, how many of them were really trained fighters?
Yeah, I mean, you had Mark Merrow, who had boxing.
Yes.
But then he got in there and he ran right into Steve Blackman, who understood, I just have to take him down and not get hit by him.
Yeah.
You had Dr. Death, who had a wrestling background but didn't look like he was going to employ it. And then you had Dan Severn, which it's terrifying to think of what he might have been able to do to some of those guys had he stayed in. Exactly. But otherwise, there was nothing. Honestly,
no, it was really a tough guy contest. Yeah. It was really, like you said, Kimbo and your 3,000 buddy. It was literally that, Sean. This was exactly what JBL said. I mean, this is what these guys would look in a barroom brawl. This is exactly what it was.
I got to say, honestly, The Godfather had probably some of the best technique of anybody in there, and I didn't expect that.
And definitely one of the early favorites, bro. Definitely one of the early favorites going in.
And like, I didn't watch this as it happened. For some reason, I don't know why I hadn't watched the Brawl for All as it happened, so I got to relive all this stuff. And, he had the the Supreme Fighting Machine gimmick. So I was like, man, they could have probably taken that a little further if he would.
Bro, he was the real deal. And he still is to this day. Bro, this is the guy that, works security at the strip clubs in Vegas. This is the real Magilla. So he was definitely an odds-on favorite early on, no question about it.
Do you remember Brackus?
God, I don't, bro. Refresh my memory.
The giant 303-pound German, Akeem Albrecht. He only wrestled once or twice, but he was in the tournament.
I don't even remember that.
I had to go back and find out who he was. Yeah. I just didn't know if you had any memory of that. Quebecer Pierre, how was he allowed to do that? He has one eye.
Sean, I got to tell you, this was the most amazing thing of the Brawl for All for me. And I think you kind of like had to be in the arena right? Remember, bro, we changed the lighting because we were telling people, we were trying to tell people this is a shoot. This is completely different. Yeah. But, bro, this was the beauty of the Brawl for All. Bro, at the beginning, everybody thought it was a work. And I'm talking about the people. I'm talking about the fans. Everybody thought it was a work. You could tell by the response of the crowd. But Sean, after you got into those first couple of rounds and guys started getting their clocks cleaned, all of a sudden there was a point where the audience said, holy crap, this is real. These guys are really knocking each other out. And it was unbelievable to see that, where at the beginning it was like, screw this. This is just a bad idea. This is a work. And by the time you got into it, like, people were like, holy crap, they're really freaking trying to knock each other out.
Oh, yeah, it's hard to work boxing. It's hard to do that. Even the guy who played Creed, Michael B. Jordan, I think, he got knocked out filming that. There's an outtake where he got knocked out cold working the fight during the movie.
Oh, yeah, bro. Dolph Lundgren put Sylvester Stallone in the hospital. I mean, for those boxing scenes. Absolutely. Bro, none of this was worked. None of this.
Yeah.
And I don't think the boys would have had it. Bro, this is where their masculinity really came into play. Where at the beginning, it was kind of like, what are you guys, crazy? But as they got into this, bro, I got to tell you, Sean, at the back of wrestling shows, you got your monitors where people can see what's going on in the ring. And, bro, 75% of the time, nobody's watching. Every time there was a Brawl for All match, it was standing room only. I mean, you had to fight to get a spot in front of the monitor because all the boys were so into it, bro.
Were there any early favorites? Like, when you looked at the field, were you like, okay, that guy's going to win?
Well, I would say the three favorites, bro, probably were, Godfather, JBL because of his mouth, and Dr. Death. Those were probably the three favorites. Bro, Bart Gunn was not even on my radar. I mean, not even. I didn't even think twice about Bart Gunn. Those three guys were probably the favorites.
And also, what was the thought process like when – I mean, Ken Shamrock obviously ended up not doing it, but when Dan Severn decided that he was going to do it, because he told me he didn't even know he was going to do it or wasn't offered until the tournament had already started, and I guess somebody had pulled out, and they were like, hey, you want to do this? And he was like, okay, sure.
Yeah, no, Bruce Pritchard, he was the guy that made the phone calls. Bruce was talent relations at the time, so he was the guy that called these guys, offered them the money. I don't even know if he had to up the money during the phone calls. That would be a great conversation with him, but he was really the one that got all these guys in the Brawl for All.
So what was your reaction when Bart Gunn started to knock people out?
I'll tell you this. Let me back up. There's a great story in this, bro. There's a great story I want to back up. If you go back, did you watch the Mero JBL fight?
Yeah.
Bro, Mero was ballistic after the fight. He without a shadow of a doubt, he felt that, they screwed him. And because it went back to all the Sable stuff. He wanted to do it to freaking show everybody, I'm sick and tired of you guys, taking my wife's success out on me. And at the end of the day, that was the biggest controversy where he felt they outright screwed him. And you know what, bro? I don't disagree with him.
I agree.
Yeah. Bro, here's the one thing I will never forget, Sean, and you can go back and look at this. Bart Gunn was in there with the Godfather. Mm-hmm. When Bart Gunn hit the Godfather, bro, he hit that man so hard, Godfather's eyes rolled into the back of his head. I'll never forget that because, Sean, to this day, I've never seen anybody get hit that hard in my life. Anywhere, in boxing matches, MMA, and it was up close and in person. I've never seen. Bro, do you know what it takes to knock out a guy like the Godfather in his
300
prime?
pounds, 300-pounder.
I never saw anything like it. I never forgot it, bro.
What does that say about Bob Holly's chin that he was the only guy to not get knocked out by Bart Gunn? He went the distance with him.
And he was a legitimate tough guy, bro. Bob Holly, you might not think it, absolutely one of the top 5 toughest guys in the WWE at the time.
Now, obviously, when a guy gets knocked out, that kind of puts him on the shelf for a little bit. You all had to deal with some injuries in relation to this tournament. Did it really affect you at all? Because these guys weren't doing a lot.
Well, not only did it really not affect us, but Sean, I got to be honest with you, I don't think we thought that through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think we thought through what happens if half the roster really gets effed up. You know what I mean? I don't think we thought that through. But yeah, no, it didn't really affect us, bro.
I didn't think so, because as I looked, I was like, okay, Godfather was off TV for a few months. And all these guys, and I'm like, well, I don't think they were doing much with him anyway, which is probably why they were in this tournament to get the money anyway. So after Bob Holly did this, were there any plans for him, like any idea of a push, anything like that? Or was it just he's a guy who won a tournament?
Oh, you're talking about Bart Gunn?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, well, bro, I think the thing that really set it back was the performance against Butterbean.
Oh, also, I wanted to ask, how did that come about? Was that always the plan, or did that come up afterwards?
I think that came up afterwards, bro. And, bro, make no mistakes about it. With the presentation he put on in the Brawl for All, we really thought he could beat Butterbean. We would not have put the guy in the ring. But here's what happened, bro. At the time, Mero had a trainer, his professional trainer that traded him for the Gold Gloves. The guy's name was Mark Rinaldi. Okay, bro? For some way, shape, or form, Rinaldi became Bart Gunn's trainer after he won the Brawl for All. So after he won the Brawl for All, before Butterbean, Bart Gunn changed his whole style, bro. He was training to be a boxer, which is not how he won the Brawl for All. So he went in that match against Butterbean, bro. He tried to box Butterbean rather than just throw the kitchen sink at Butterbean. And, you know, Butterbean destroyed Bart Gunn. But, bro, to the life of me, to this day, I don't know why Bart felt he had to learn how to box in the last couple of weeks before he got in there against Butterbean.
Yeah, we see that a lot with MMA guys. You'll see a guy who has never wrestled a day in his life face a wrestler, and he spends his whole camp wrestling, and it's still not enough to overcome that. Bart Gunn was never going to be a better boxer than Butterbean, I don't think. So he probably should have just relied on that left hand. Do you wish you could have booked Joey Styles against JBL? Because that could have been a knockout.
I would have loved that, bro. You kidding me? I would have bought a front row seat for that one. So, bro, that's a lot. Like, so many people ask me, why doesn't JBL like you? This has like everything to do with it, bro.
And he made it to the finals technically, but I thought Mero beat him. I really did. Yeah. I thought Mero beat him. And was there anybody that you would have wanted to see in this tournament that didn't do it?
Oh, God, bro. I guess, bro, the only person, and maybe not because of just health reasons, but I know he's one tough SOB, and especially back then was Taker. You know, bro, Taker could handle himself, but, bro, people, even back then, bro, the back issues, you know, the guy had. I mean, he was always in a lot of pain. I'm glad he wasn't in it, but man, he was a guy that was the real deal, Taker.
I think he really revolutionized striking in pro wrestling, the way that he brought the MMA style over, but made it work.
I agree.
Even the selling, because if you see him get beat down in a corner, he's not just doing this, he's doing this and covering up. I think he really revolutionized striking, and he's been a big MMA fan his whole life.
Yeah.
Looking back, would you do the Brawl for All over again? I mean,
absolutely, I would. Absolutely.
I mean, obviously, if I'm still talking about it, and it's 20 years later almost.
You know, Sean, you know, bro, how difficult it is. I don't need to tell you this, to do things different in wrestling. I mean, we've seen the same angles regurgitated over and over and over again. That's why, bro, I was always a big proponent of, you know, let's think outside of the box. Let's do something different. So I 1,000% would do it all over again.
And last question I'll give you. I know you don't know a lot of their amateur backgrounds, but say they did one today, Brawl for All today,
Well,
and not
including
Lesnar,
okay, that's what I was
not
going to
including
say.
Lesnar,
Yeah.
because they'd have to pay him an obscene amount of money, like a ridiculous amount. Who do you think wins it?
God, bro. Who do you think first? Give me a minute to think.
I'd have to go. I'd probably say Jack Swagger or probably Del Rio, because Del Rio was an MMA fighter, but Jack Swagger has that background. Or if they allowed the NXT guys, Chad Gable, he was an Olympic wrestler, but he's smaller than those guys, so you never know.
Bro, I'm going to give you a dark horse only because I know him well. Okay, bro, I don't think many people know the upbringing of AJ Styles.
Oh,
bro,
gosh.
AJ lived a very, very hard life growing up in Gainesville. You would not think that. Bro, this is a guy that literally had to fight for his life. AJ Styles is one of those guys, bro, that you would literally have to kill him to keep him down. And I'm telling you, bro, AJ would be a dark horse because I know, bro, he was still doing damage to people when he was working at TNA back home in Gainesville. And I know firsthand because he got in trouble a few times. Bro, AJ is a legit tough guy.